You're all very welcome to July's Environmental Services Committee meeting here in the Town Hall in Enniskillen. And as it's my first real opportunity to do so, as it's my first proper meeting back from illness, I would like to thank all the members and council staff for their messages, phone calls, emails, prayers and well wishes during a very difficult time for me and my family. And they're all very much appreciated, so thank you all. I also want to thank my party for nominating me to the position of chair of this committee. I chaired this committee in the last mandate, and yet again it's a great honour and privilege to be in this position. Finally, I want to thank Councillor Maguire for kindly filling in for me last month as I continued to recover. So thank you, Tommy. So now we'll move on to the agenda. Firstly, have we any apologies that anybody knows of? Councillor Maguire.
Councillor McColgan sent an apology.
Okay. No other apologies. I know we're being joined by Councillor Keith Elliott and Councillor Bernard McGrath on WebEx. And if we could ask them to please put their cameras on, please, just to make sure you go there. Okay, that's all the apologies. And next, sorry. Councillor Elliott, if you could.
I just need to turn this screen around some way. How do you turn the screen around?
IT can help you, Keith, there if you're having difficulty. All right.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is item 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes from the previous meeting. I've just done that previous to the meeting, start of the meeting. Number 3, any declarations of interest? Nobody indicating, so we'll move on. Okay, item 4, Environment and Place Director Report 4.1, to consider reports on estates matters, paper A, and that's John.
Chair, thank you. This is the monthly Estates Matters report, so a number of key issues for decision for members and a number of items just to note for information. So the first item for decision is lands at Strathroy. So Council has received a request from a developer seeking permission for an easement to lay a storm sewer pipe across Council lands at Strathroy Road, and that's to facilitate an adjacent housing development. So it's been reviewed by officers and recommend the request be approved subject to assessment by LPS of appropriate compensation to Council and reasonable legal and agent fees. Second item then is regarding Strathroy playing fields at Omagh. Members may recall that some time ago we had conducted an expression of interest for the leasing of the playing fields at Strathroy back in 2020. There was a joint submission at that time had come in from St Enda's Gaelic Football Club and Strathroy Harps Football Club. That was accepted by Council at that stage, subject to setting up a separate legal entity. And I suppose while there has been protracted engagement with the solicitors for both clubs in this matter, and over a year ago in March of 2023, the Council had approved entering into a 25-year nominal lease with the two clubs. The two clubs have still not been able to establish the single legal entity at this point in time. So on that basis, we're not in a position to proceed with the lease. So therefore, it's recommended that we terminate that process and that the Council will then continue to control and manage the pitch provision at Strathroy. The next item then is relating to Carrickmore Public Convenience. So again, the Council has been approached by Mid-Ulster Community and Arts Trust, who are based, as members may be aware, in the Patrician Hall in Carrickmore, and that's with a view to making available the recently refurbished toilets within the building. And they would like to make those available for public use. Members may be aware there are Council public conveniences directly adjacent to the Patrician Hall. We've had a site meeting with representatives of MUCAT, and the provision within the Patrician Hall will actually be over longer hours on a weekly basis than the Council facilities will currently be open. So therefore, it's recommended that we enter into a service level agreement with MUCAT on a pilot basis through to the end of this financial year for the provision of public convenience facilities at the Patrician. And the only cost to council that we would defray any additional costs that MUCAT would have over the period of that lease. And during the period of the pilot, the existing public convenience will remain closed. And sorry, I've just realised I've said subject to the outcome of a 12-month trial period. That should be a trial period through to the 31st of March 2025. Apologies about that. At which point then we can consider the longer term uses of the site. The next item, 2.3, then we'll have we've been contacted by Earn Tours Limited, who have a 21-year lease on marine, pedestrian and access ramps at the Roundel in Enniskillen. The company have requested permission to carry out some internal refurbishment work at the cafe building and store, and it's recommended that approval be granted, again subject to compliance with all of the relevant statutory approvals. As part of the ongoing work at Foundry Lane and Oma Environment Improvement Scheme, we have some funding available to carry out some shopfront enhancement works, and therefore it's recommended that we enter into the appropriate legal agreements with the relevant landowners, and that council will be responsible for the landowners' reasonable legal fees. We've been contacted by a number of operators of mobile sauna services, expressed an interest in operating at a number of sites throughout the council area, namely at Galloon, Bunn and Gortin Lakes. In respect of Galloon and Bunn, we have a reciprocal agreement in place currently for a licence from Waterways Ireland, and whereas Gortin Lakes is a council-owned facility. So it's recommended that as these are commercial operators that we would carry out an expression of interest in respect of these sites, and then subject to the outcome of that engagement with Waterways Ireland for Galloon and Bunn, that we would enter into an appropriate lease arrangement with any operators that might come through the expression of interest process. Finally then, the next section with requests for a number of uses of council property as set out there at Pedigo LOL use of Mantling Roads on the 3rd of July for a Psalm commemoration event. Then the Irvinstown Truck Festival Committee requesting use of the Bonnieacre Centre from the 19th to the 21st of July for a charity truck festival. And finally then Earn Vintage Car Club permission to use Hollyhill Car Park on the 16th of August. And subsequently then the number of retrospective requests for approval to use council property as set out within the report related to Mullacarn in Gortin Glen, Celtic Park in Enniskillen, Newton Butler Play Area, the Grange Park in Oma, Marble Arch Caves, Spring Grove Forest in Rosslea, and finally in section 3 a number of documents to be sealed in respect of a renewal of lease for lands at Actor Rourke, and then a consent for registration of a lease for the trustees of Melvin Recreational and Resource Centre in Garrison. So the recommendations, members, are set out in section 9. That council approves the recommendations in 9.11 through to 9.18, and then secondly at 9.2 that the council notes the same the documents as set out within the report.
Thank you for that, John. And first up, Stephen, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair, and very much welcome you to your new position and wish you well for the year ahead. I'm content to propose the recommendations, and in particular take this opportunity to welcome the progress that's been made to date with respect to the Foundry Lane Environmental Improvement Scheme. This was one of those ideas that very much we've been kind of speaking about early in the last mandate, and it's been really fruitful and wonderful to see further progress actually come to fruition with more to come in due course. I suppose just the one question I would like to pose, and I'm happy to take any guidance to make sure I don't stray into anything that may not be able to be discussed in public session, but just in terms of the issue with respect to the Strathroy playing fields, it's regrettable that we've kind of reached a situation where we're going to have to potentially look at a termination of the present process. And I suppose just clarity in terms of procedure arising from this juncture. On the back of these recommendations being passed, will we then move to the issuing of a new process of seeking expressions of interest? And in the context of that, if that is the case, would it be possible for St. Enda's and the Strathroy Harps to re-engage as part of that process if they were to reach a position where they were able to satisfy the legal obligations in terms of setting up a separate company, which they've not been able to, as far as I understand it, on this occasion.
John?
Thank you, Chair. At this stage, we wouldn't be recommending a further expression of interest. Certainly, there has been engagement with both clubs. It's to say the two clubs haven't been able to resolve the separate legal entity between themselves. That's a matter really for the two clubs. Certainly, there has been engagement with staff and officers within Community and Wellbeing Service, and as a council, we would be very content with continuing to manage the provision and be responsible for it ourselves. I think it will then ensure that the pitches are available for wider community use and for both of the clubs that were previously expressed an interest in using it. And should that change at some point in the future, we can of course review the position, but there would be no intention to go out with another EOI at this point.
Okay, Councillor Feely.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and likewise like to wish you best of luck on your year ahead as Chair, and good to see you made a full recovery and back. It's good to see you back out. No, I was going to second the proposal, but I'm not going to second now, just in case. I want to declare an interest on item 3.1 there. I'm a member of Devonish St Mary's, just in case, keep yourself right. So I'll second it.
Dead on. Thank you, Anthony. Councillor McLaughlin.
Yeah, thank you. I'm quite happy to second it. Again, on the Strathroy playing fields, I've noticed a few of these now are starting to. I know that was maybe there was more to that one there than other ones, but I know the financial constraints on actually maintaining these pitches. Is that having a direct impact on the clubs as well? Well, because I know the cost of maintaining pitches has skyrocketed through my other activities, and is that having an impact on clubs taking ownership and taking on all the responsibilities around these pitches, John, or is that something you wouldn't be happy talking about at this stage?
Chair, if you're happy, to the best of my knowledge, that's not a consideration in this particular instance. I don't dispute that obviously there are costs involved with the management of any facility, but as I understand it, that's not the issue in this particular instance. It's that the clubs haven't been able to conclude the establishment of a separate legal entity.
Okay, thank you. And that's been proposed and seconded. Are we all in agreement? Yep. Item 4.2, to consider report on waste management plan addendum paper B, and that's John again.
Thank you, Chair. Members, this is a very lengthy appendix as part of this report, the waste management plan addendum. So it is quite a weighty document, but it says the requirement to have a waste management plan is a statutory obligation on council and on all councils, and as referenced in the report, it's an obligation under Article 23 of the Waste and Contaminated Land Northern Ireland Order 1997. The council has a waste management plan in place. It was due for renewal in 2020. There had been negotiations with DAERA, an indication from DAERA at that stage that they had intended to bring forward a new waste management strategy at that point in time. That has been delayed, as is referenced in the report, for a number of reasons, but including the absence of an assembly for a period of time. DAERA have now also indicated that they are continuing to review and hope to bring forward a publication for a draft or a consultation on a draft waste management strategy by the end of this summer. The rescheduled date had originally been in 2023, and then a number of additional pieces of legislative change and have come forward, but also more anticipated over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. And members will be familiar with some of these from previous reports around extended producer responsibility, the possibility for deposit return schemes, the emissions trading scheme, and digital waste tracking. So there has been quite a lengthy engagement between all of the councils and the various two waste management groups in Northern Ireland, and through the government waste working group with DAERA, and it had been agreed with DAERA that to ensure that all of the councils and the waste management groups remained technically compliant, that we would bring forward what was described and referred in the paper as a light touch addendum, and that's really, I said, to ensure a technical compliance conveyance and having a waste management plan that extends over or extends into the future. So the purpose of the addendum as attached in Appendix 1 is really to reflect some of the changes that have taken place since the previous waste management plan was developed in 2016, provides an update on current performance and waste horizons, and it looks at potential for new policies and procedures that might inform any future review of the waste management plan in the context of that new legislative environment. Given the nature of this as an addendum rather than as a wholesale change to the waste management plan, we've clarified and taken advice that there's no legal requirement for pardon me, for a formal public consultation, but rather that what we would look at would be engagement with the waste contractors who would be most affected by any changes that would be coming down the line, such as things like EPR and DRS. The addendum that's attached is part of it's an agreed addendum across the 3 non-aligned councils that I mentioned about the waste management groups. So you have ARC21 and then you have the Northwest Waste Management group. They have their own waste management plans, and then the 3 non-aligned councils, Armagh, Banbridge, Craigavon, Mid-Ulster and ourselves have an agreed waste management plan. This addendum is also going through similar processes in ABC Council and Mid-Ulster. In fact, I think ABC, their report went towards the end of June, and Mid-Ulster, as I understand it, is due to go to their committee at some point this month, if it's not even this week. In terms of that engagement with the processes, again, that will be an agreed approach across ourselves, Mid-Ulster and ABC. We have, however, given that it is an addendum, we have taken through the appropriate Section 75 and rural needs impact assessments, and it has been screened out on both of those counts, as you'll see within Appendix 2 and Appendix 3. So therefore, it's recommended the Council notes the contents of the report and agrees the draft waste management plan addendum is set out in Appendix 1. Given the document, I wasn't proposing to go through the detail, but if members have any queries, happy to take those either now or offline.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. Any queries? If not, I'll take a proposer and seconder, please. Proposed by Councillor Brown, second by Councillor Coyle. Thank you. Now, moving on to item 551 is to note report of the Director of Environment Place, paper C.
Thank
John
you.
again.
Thank you, Chair and members. Just one item in the Director's report this month. It's an update on actions arising over the previous 3-month period for actions from the Environment and Services Committee. So you'll see there that 89% of all of the actions have now been complete over that period of time. Of the 11 that are still in progress, they relate to a number of lands and property matters, and particular leases and expression of interest processes that are ongoing and conveyancing matters. So it's recommended that Council notes the update on the progress of actions from EF Committee in the period March to May 2024.
Yeah, thank you, John. No queries, so proposer and seconder, please. Councillor Maguire proposed, seconder by Councillor Robinson. Oh, sorry. One in there, Councillor Feely.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want, is it all right if I mention an issue, Gavin, is to do with actions in environmental just now?
Yeah, work away, yeah.
It's just, somebody mentioned this to me this morning, so I didn't get a chance to email John or anyone about it. It's just about, the recycling centres, in Garrison and all ones get about when they be closed for a day, the gate be closed and there'll be the member staff sitting outside in a van. And some people comes and they just say that the place is closed. Like, I didn't know this was going on at all until the day. I was just wondering, what's the rationale for that? Or would be, well, maybe have them inside, or maybe they're not trained to do that. I just a comment from it, John, if it's okay. Sorry for springing this on you.
Thank you,
Yeah, John.
Chair. I'm happy to pick up on the specifics. On occasions when household recycling centres aren't, are closed or aren't open on the scheduled hours, those would be advertised on our social media. There may be occasions when centres have to shut slightly early or open slightly late, and sometimes that can be for as a result of staff training, or could be staff absence. The specifics of a member of staff sitting outside in a van, I'll certainly have a look into that for you. That's because the staff who would be based in those household recycling centres wouldn't have access to a vehicle. So unless it's another member of council staff who happens to be parked up at the site rather than being the site attendant, but certainly I wouldn't expect that the site attendant or the site would be closed and the site attendant would be sitting in the council vehicle outside. But I'm happy to look into specifics of that for you after the meeting.
Happy enough, Anthony, yeah. Okay, so it's been proposed by Councillor Maguire, seconded by Councillor Robinson. Are we all in agreement? Yep. Okay. And moving on to item 6, correspondence. So I'll just hand over to John. There's 3 or 4 pieces, isn't there? Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the first piece of correspondence is from Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, and it's in response to a query that had gone to, following a previous ES meeting around responsible dog ownership, and in particular any plans or intentions that the department had to strengthen legislation or in that regard, or examples of good practice. So the department have written back and since said there's no intentions to strengthen legislation to make any significant changes. They have outlined what the current legislative provision is, and they've indicated that they consider the current dog control legislation to be robust, but they're happy to take proposals for any legislative change that may be necessary in the future. So, just a note.
Okay, just take it. Councillor McLaury.
Thank you. Happy to note. Wee bit confused by some of the things. There's a part in where he's planning to engage with us and relevant stakeholders to garner views and suggestions for legislative changes. Then he says, we have full autonomy to determine our own dog control enforcement strategy as well as resources and supplement any enforcement matters. Is he telling us that we can make our own bylaws, or is he just basically doesn't really know? So I mean, my question was, can we bring in a bylaw where it would be an offence to walk your dog without having poo bags with you? Because then, how can you claim you're going to lift the poo when you don't have any way of lifting it? Was basically my suggestion, and then between the officers and my idiot question, we managed to come up with a reasonable way to get a response. But he's open to making changes, but isn't planning to do any. But he says we can make our own. Is that what he's telling us?
In there, John? Yeah.
It was just in respect of the bylaws. Council does have autonomy in terms of bylaws across its own estate, and as members will recall, we actually have revised bylaws that are currently with the Department for Communities and waiting ratification from them. So we do have autonomy as a council to introduce bylaws across our own estate.
You're happy to propose a note, John, yeah?
I'm happy to propose a note, but I'm wondering then, could we look at the very minimum of having that as a bylaw within our estates, that anybody who's walking a dog and doesn't have poo bags with them, it may not be a massive fine, but at least could be subject to a fine, because if you don't have the bags, you have no way of lifting the poo, and we can't catch them when their dogs are making the mess. But if we can prove they've no way of lifting the mess, well then it's half the battle. At least if they have the bags, they might use them.
Chair, if I maybe just might comment in relation specifically, Councillor McClarty, to your comments or proposals there. I think I agree. Firstly, I think the letter is maybe, there's a little bit of ambiguity in it, but as I understand it, if you look at really the second last paragraph, the council's ability to enforce anything around this is under Clean Neighbourhoods. And yes, we do have, as John has indicated, the provision to make bylaws, but the provision is quite constrained in relation to what we can do. I would have thought that what you're suggesting, Councillor McClarty, would require the department to give us that flexibility, which I don't think we currently have. What I think is interesting in the letter is there's reference about engaging with relevant stakeholders. There's no clarity if councils are included as a relevant stakeholder, and I think it might be worth clarifying, is there an intention to engage meaningfully with councils on this? Also to highlight the particular views or impractical suggestions. I think we could reference the fact that, as far as we understand, while we know we can make bylaws, we're largely constrained within the clean neighbourhoods as our primary enforcing policy. And finally, Chair, just in relation to the resourcing piece, I think it is worth highlighting that while we're pursuing it separately, and how this letter originated in the first instance was about the importance of DAERA also assigning appropriate enforcement resources around a wide variety of animal welfare and related activity. So it is important that resourcing is considered holistically, and it's not just back to councils.
Yeah, thank you, Cheeky. Do you want back in there?
Thank you, Alison. I'm wondering then if everybody was happy. I think you have made the frame there for a letter back, and I would propose that we do that, basically around what you have said, Alison, because I could never repeat it as eloquently as you have done it.
Okay, so you're making that proposal, John. Could you get a seconder for that before we move on? Councillor Debbie Colley, second that. Bring in you new, Councillor Maguire.
Graham, I got to tell you, it was exactly the same paragraph that I was coming in on, because when I read it, I thought, this doesn't sound like anything I've heard in the past, that we would have so much autonomy and that we have all these resources to engage with these. Obviously, as the Chief Executive has indicated, it's not just as clear as that. So I'm happy enough to second the noting of it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the report has been proposed and seconded for noting. Are we all in agreement? And Councillor McClaughry's proposal for the right back has been proposed and seconded by Councillor Coyle. We all in agreement? Thank you, members. Now moving on, John, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So another item of correspondence from this time, it's from Department for Infrastructure, and it's regarding the proposed part-time 20 miles per hour speed limit at St Bridget's Primary School, Altmuskin, 6 Mile Cross. And again, DFI have supplied a map indicating where they would intend to implement a 20 mile per hour speed limit, and have noted that this has been possible because of the repurposing of signage following a school closure within the council area. They've consulted with PSNI and they're in agreement with the proposal. So correspondences are for noting.
Thank you, John. First up, Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to welcome this development in 6 Mile Cross, and hopefully with a more stable executive tenure, we may be able to see the rollout of more of these proposals across the district in the forthcoming years. So I'm happy to propose noting the letter.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Councillor McClaughry.
Yeah, I would welcome this one. For those that don't know, St Bridget's is one of the few very rural schools. It's actually in a 60 mile an hour speed limit. It's not as if you're in a town driving at 30 or 40. It's a 60, so that would be much welcomed, that they're going to reduce the speeds out around that their rural school. So I think it's a great proposal.
Be happy to second, John. Yeah. Thank you. Is that being proposed and second for note and all agree? Yep. Yeah, moving on now, John.
Letters, Chair, just in the other.
Yeah.
Okay, Chair, the next item of correspondence, on Friday past, we were contacted by Lord Foster, who has been campaigning on the issue of battery safety in the House of Lords. Also, the Parliamentary Advisor to Electrical Safety First, a UK charity dedicated to reducing death and injuries caused by electricity. And the correspondence is focusing on the incidence of lithium-ion battery fires across the UK over the last number of years, and notes the number of incidents that there have been and injuries and fatalities that have been caused as a result, and the damage to households and the properties. So the correspondence asking that the council would support the campaign, and within the correspondence of it included a number of hyperlinks to various interactive maps that show the incidence of these fires across the UK. When you go into the interactive map, one of the 900 that's mentioned is in Northern Ireland and relates to a house fire in where an e-scooter or an e-bike was charging overnight. So said they've been in contact with all local authorities and asking that support the campaign. So the correspondence is to note at this stage.
Yeah, thank you, John. Any questions or queries on that? If not, proposer and seconder for noting. Councillor Robinson, Councillor Maguire. Thank you, members. Final piece, John?
Thank you, yeah. And then, sorry, a piece of correspondence just come in this morning, also from DFI, and this is a proposed revocation of a part-time 20 miles per hour speed limit at Gillygoody Primary School in Omagh. And this is a revocation following the closure of the school earlier this year. So again, PSNI have been consulted and they're in agreement with the proposal, and the letter also includes a map showing the portion of road outside Gillygoody Primary School. So to note at this stage, members.
Thank you, John. Proposer and seconder to note. Proposed by Councillor Donnelly, second by Councillor Robinson. Thank you, members. That's all the correspondence. Okay, moving on, item 7. I have received no communication about any urgent or relevant business, so we'll just move on to the next item. Yep. Proposer and seconder, Councillor Feely and Councillor McClary, to go into committee. Yeah, just do a summary there, John, please.
Thank you, Chair. While in confidential business, Environmental Services Committee considered the report and a number of estate matters and approved the recommendations as set out within the paper.
Okay, a proposer and seconder for that, please. Councillor Coyle, Councillor McClary. Yeah. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. Thank you very much, folks.